Hi, I'm Jason Barron. I'm going to read an excerpt from the famous Monsignor Glenn, Sociology, from the famous page 372. That there are lines between classes of people is a certainty that may as well be acknowledged at once. And the color line is one of them. While it is entirely possible to ignore these lines, the social effect of such action is seldom happy. Okay, I'm going to cut in here. Monsignor Glenn is stating an opinion based on fact. He's not saying that you can't pretend these lines don't exist. But what he's saying is, if you do pretend that these lines don't exist, it's gonna not work out well. So I'll start again. That there are lines between classes of people is a certainty that may as well be acknowledged at once, and the color line is one of them. While it is entirely possible to ignore these lines, the social effect of such action is seldom happy. And I'll cut in again just to make reference to current events in the news lately. That's all. Won't pick out anything in particular. Just to again read, the social effect of such action is seldom happy. Just as a member of the true church is earnestly dissuaded from marriage by dispensation with a non-member, so should a member of one race be dissuaded from marriage with a person of another color. And I'll cut in here to say that, yes, that's obvious to anybody with two eyes when they see an unnatural union that produces an unnatural offspring. And now I'll continue reading. In marriages of either type, there is a definite injustice done to children. I'll cut in again, the children I was just referring to. There are almost inevitable misunderstandings between the parties themselves, and there is sure to be some friction between the families so gracelessly united. I'll cut in again. We could look to the royal family of England after the inception of Meghan Markle. The Negro problem is complicated by the attitude of many Negroes themselves. Not only do they recognize the unkind and unjust attitude of white people in their regard, not only do they resent this attitude, they forget their own dignity and proper pride of race to become cheap imitations of the very persons who mistreat them. Of course, this is no more true of all Negroes than is dislike or contempt for Negroes a mark of all white persons. But it is true of a great many. These dislike their color. They are ashamed of kinky hair. They ape the manners of the more wealthy and prominent whites. They try to break into the refined districts and cities and to establish homes there. The very attitude and activities of these unworthy Negroes serve only to increase the scorn and antipathy of unworthy whites. Those who do social work among the Negroes have a difficult, nay, a heart-rending task. For Negroes are kept so poor, they have such little opportunity for decent housing, for adequate work, for recreation, for playgrounds for their children, yet much has been accomplished in spite of all these difficulties. And much more will be done. It will be done the more quickly if Negroes can be induced to leave off aspiring for recognition by whites and to take a deep interest in advancing themselves as Negroes. Instead of regarding themselves as segregated, let them learn to consider their groups as colonies. Let them be taught to leave off imitating any other race. And I'll break in here again. This is where the problem with the self-esteem of the blacks comes into play. They feel that they have to be accepted by whites. They feel that their self-esteem can only come from whites rather than from themselves, and that's where they're wrong. The blacks can only have self-esteem that comes from themselves, not from approval from anybody else. Okay, now I'll continue reading. And to develop their own race to its best and finest capabilities. For the rest, sociologists must labor on to procure for Negroes opportunities equal to those accorded to white people, equal facilities for education, equal opportunities for recreation and decent amusement, and equal standing with whites in point of work and wages, and equal status before the courts. Now, this last part is outdated because that has not only been done, it's been turned topsy-turvy. Blacks actually receive lower sentences now from the courts than whites do. I know that for a fact because I was in a long judicial proceeding in my own criminal case, and I observed blacks who were charged with the same or more serious offenses than I was, and they were multiple time felons, whereas I was a first-time felon, and they received either the same or lesser sentences than I did. So we can do away with that conversation. As far as this reference to equal facilities for education, recreation, obviously that's obviously was referring to the South back in the days of segregation, and now it's funny we think about that Jonah Park, where now that the niggers can come into the parks and ruffle through the white woman's diaper bag and whatnot. What was her name? Shiloh Hendricks. Well, that was the result of that. So I think Monsignor Glenn here was actually, even back in 1934, being a little bit too liberal. But then again, he was a priest, you know, so they kind of got to be careful about that kind of stuff. But yeah, um, but Monsignor Glenn did support segregation. Um, he just didn't want it to be unjust. He wanted it to be, as the South itself used to say, separate but equal. Um, so, so yeah, I think Monsignor Glenn overall had a good understanding of things. It's just that you know, when he wrote about the equal opportunities for recreation and decent amusement, we we see that didn't work out too well. You know, uh, again, we know about Jonah Park, Shiloh Hendricks, but there are also many other hundreds of cases that occur on a daily basis that don't work out too well, that we don't hear about. You know, from allowing niggers to be in the same parks as our women and children, or even our men, women, and children. And I'll especially mention our men, because if our men do anything, our men our white men are going to prison if they resist nigger aggression. So, so yeah, while this is a good book, I still say it's too liberal. Um, this was written by Monsignor Paul Glenn, with an imprimatur from James J. Hartley, Bishop of Columbus, in 1934. This is the book. It's very hard to get. Um, Took me 13 years to get my hands on it, and I'll fight to the death to keep it. I'm Jason Barron. Have a wonderful day.